سلام به همگی. روز همگی بخیر. البته شبه. من ایمان گودرزی هستم. در خدمتتون هستیم امروز با یکی از دوستان در زمینه اقتصاد رفتاری توی نورو مارکتینگ و امیدوارم که از این لایو لذت ببرین. لایو قراره که به صورت انگلیسی باشه، برای همین حالا دوستانی که میتونن و در کنار ما هستن ما خیلی خوشحال میشیم. اگر کسی نتونست نگران نباشه، ما این لایو رو سعی میکنیم خلاصه بکنیم و حالا حداقل به صورت زیرنویس مطالب مهم رو بذاریم. من به نظرم لایو خیلی جذابی خواهیم داشت امشب. با ما همراه باشین. من از اینجا به بعد شیفت میکنم روی انگلیسی، عذرخواهی میکنم. خیلی خوشحالم که در خدمتتون هستم و شما رو اینجا داریم. متشکرم. So, hello everyone again. I am Iman Goodarzi, the owner of Chipset Solutions. Today we're going to talk about neuromarketing, and as you probably know, neuromarketing consists of different disciplines because it's an interdisciplinary field of study. So we need to know at least something or basics about psychology, marketing, neuroscience, behavioral sciences, and behavioral economics. So today we're going to focus on behavioral economics, and specifically we're going to talk about decision making under uncertainty. So today we have a great guest with us. Thank you, John, for accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Why don't you introduce yourself for our audience?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is John. I'm a marketing scientist at McGill University, and I study many different stuff, but largely it has to do with judgment and decision making, as well as bargaining in the market between two people or two groups of entities. I have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees from universities in the United States on psychology and cognitive science. And now I'm pursuing my PhD degree at McGill University.
Great, thank you. Okay, John, let's start a little bit about behavioral science because I know you have the background in that part. And I know that some of our audience are interested in behavioral economics. They probably want to pursue, some of them want to pursue their education at higher levels. So would you please let us know more about behavioral economics, behavioral sciences, and what would be learned? What are the key concepts that we can learn from the behavioral sciences or behavioral economics?
Sure, certainly for those who want to know more about behavioral econ or just go officially to obtain some kind of higher education diploma in this field is certainly a good way to boost your career or just in general understand about human behavior. There are more and more universities in the world that have this as their academic concentration, and a lot of marketing department use this behavioral economics and also study this behavioral economics and teach this behavioral economics concepts as a part of understanding consumer behaviors. Just to introduce what the behavioral economics is about briefly, as the name indicates, it's a behavioral science plus or meshed with economics. So economics, when I say economics, it's more of a neoclassical point of view of economics, which has to do with the assumptions such as all the agents or players in some kind of market situation or anything about when they make decisions, they're always rational, meaning that they always pursue their gains rather than losses. And they assume that they do that in every other situation. And also they are not swayed by any kind of framing or trickeries that might occur in the real life. This is an assumption that is very, I think, unrealistic. But that's the neoclassical point of view about economics. where behavioral econ is different from that is that they bring in a lot of insights from different disciplines, notably philosophy, psychology, and they use these insights to model a human behavior that's theoretically different from the predictions that are made by neoclassical economists. So neoclassical economists, let's say, they tell you how humans should behave, which is a normative theory, whereas behavioral economists tend to favor theories that are more descriptive. They gather data and they use that data, how humans actually behave, to make new predictions and say something like, hey, neoclassical economists, this is where you're wrong, this is how people actually behave, stuff like that.
Great. So these days, I think people need more behavioral economics than new classical economics.
Right. The world is changing so quickly, and human behavior is a complicated thing. So even in the onset of COVID-19, it was hard to predict just based on the neoclassical economists. Although it is a good starting point, was not enough to accurately predict how people will behave in the market or just anything else in life.
Yeah, sure. Great. A great introduction.
That's just introduction. There are some concepts that are I would say the base of this behavioral economics is a lot of people may know already about it. It's a prospect theory.
Yeah.
It's basically a great example to introduce what the descriptive theory is about. So it is a theory that came to be very popular because the researchers who came up with it earned the Nobel Prize in I think 2000 or 2002 or something like that, 2 decades ago. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. One of them is a mathematician, the other one is a psychologist. They got together. See how interdisciplinary the behavioral economics can be. They came up with this theory where how people make their decisions under risk, and the theory was able to predict a lot of different phenomena that was not explained by neoclassical economist theory.
Yeah, great. That's a good point that we have some courses or programs that provide for behavioral economics, because in neuromarketing, I know there is maybe few universities that suggest neuromarketing courses or neuromarketing programs. So I think that's why we need different aspects and different disciplines in neuromarketing. Thank you. But let's go into our topic. But before just go exactly to our topic, I want to say and ask why decision making is important in our lives.
So decision making, we make decisions every day, and not even every day, every second, I would say. Just to say something jokingly, you decide to live or you decide to breathe in, although it's unconscious. That's all. I think that's all kind of like unconscious decision. Although as we'll get into it a little bit more in detail later, decision making could be as complicated as like thinking very carefully about it, taking risks, making decision in the face of uncertainties. So there are a lot of ways to go about making a decision, but I want to say that decision making is important primarily because we do this almost every second or every hour or so on important things.
Great. Yeah, definitely. It's one of the most important things in our lives. So what something is more related to my at least my country, and my audience can definitely feel it deeply, and it is the uncertainty and the topic of our life. So do you think decision making would be different in under uncertainty, or people just do the same thing and act as the previously they act in their routines, or they change their behavior and change their decisions under uncertainty.
So it is hard to answer how people would behave given that there's a risk. Let's say you in one situation you have more uncertainty and you have less uncertainty. So popular notion is that people tend to use these two terms interchangeably. Mm-hmm. So people tend to think that risk and uncertainty are the same, and understandably so. Both of them has a potential for loss, as well as potential for some kind of gain, as well as these two situations prompts you to make some kind of thinking and decision making, right?
Right.
So just to, I think it's better to let's start with thinking a little bit more, talking a little bit more about risk. And then we're gonna talk more about uncertainty. That way, maybe we can our audience can see the difference between the two for themselves, because it's really hard to explain the difference between the two. And I had a chance to speak with one of the pioneers in this field, as Dr. Baruch Fisher. He's a big guy in judgment, as well as decision making. And I remember talking to him, and he once said that the reason why you're coming up to me to ask about the difference between risk and uncertainty may have to do with the fault on ourselves, the older scholars, because it was a relatively new field, and they weren't sure how to explain it. So he was putting a blame on him. I'm not certainly blaming them, but it is a really hard concept to grasp, even for those scholars. So it is understandably so that lay people who are not particularly invested in this field, experience a difficulty distinguishing the two. So going back to the risk, so when I say risk, it's a situation in which your probability of gain and probability of some kind of loss, we're just going to use the money as an example for this context, are specified. So the percentages are specified. So when if you like risk, then we label that phenomena as a risk seeking. Whereas if you don't like risk, then we label that phenomena as a risk aversive, right? So for instance, so great way to demonstrate this two phenomena is, let's say, would you receive $10 for sure, like 100%, or would you rather play a game that gives you $20 at 50% or you get nothing at 50%? Would you play the game, or would you just walk away with the $10?
Yeah, we can ask our audience.
We can ask the audience. So would you? So you stand to gain some kind of money, right? And would you receive $10 for sure, 100%, or play a game that gives you the chance of winning $20 at 50%, or $0 at 50%?
Yeah, you can comment. سوال اینه که $10 رو اگر که بهتون $10 قطعی بدن بیشتر انتخاب میکنین، یعنی $10 رو انتخاب میکنین، یا اینکه اگر که بهتون بگن میتونین یه مسابقه شرکت بکنین و $20 برنده بشین اما 50% احتمال داره که مثلا برنده بشین، کدومو ترجیح میدین؟ $10 رو یا $20 رو؟
So this just to demonstrate the risk aversion really quickly. So in this situation, you stand to gain something, some kind of money, or walk away with nothing. So according to the prospect theory that I just introduced a couple of minutes ago, people are risk aversive when it comes to gains, meaning that they love the sure option. So statistically speaking, more people choose to walk away with the $10 than to play the game that could yield potentially $10 more than what they are walking away with, right? Well, let's take it to the loss section. So when it comes to risk seeking, that's when this thing comes in. So I'm going to ask you the similar question. So you stand to lose some money for it. You got yourself into a situation where you stand to lose some money. Would you spend $5 to fix that problem? Or would you rather gamble and play the games that gives you only $10 of loss at 50%, or just, $0 of losing nothing at 50%? So in that case, if you're stand to lose something, descriptively speaking, people are risk seeking, meaning that rather than losing $5 for sure to fix something, I'd rather, roll my dice and then risk losing $10 and 50%, or, if I'm lucky at 50%, I'll just walk away with no loss.
Yeah.
So that's the risk seeking part. So these are two, I guess, major phenomena or predictions that are predicted by prospect theory alone. But prospect theory also has different components to it too. People really hate loss compared to gains, right?
Yeah.
So let me give you another quick question, which is, would you rather gain nothing? So like you're approached by some weird psychologist, and then the psychologist asks you, well, would you rather gain nothing or I'll give you some kind of gamble game that gives you the chance of winning $10 at 50% or losing $10 at 50%? What would you do? A lot of people tend to just stay where they are. They don't want to risk losing $10 because the losses loom larger than gains.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so even though you stand to gain $10 at 50%, this loss of $10, the potential loss of $10 at 50% it's just hanging over your head like a cloud. Yeah. So you tend to just forget your gamble. I'm just gonna ignore you and walk away. So that's the loss aversion, slightly different from risk aversion and risk seeking, right? And another fascinating thing about this prospect theory is also to be able to also predict the framing effect. The framing effect is so if you're a neoclassical economist and if you really believe their normative theory, then you should always be rational, no matter how some kind of information, like this, for instance, the quiz that I gave you is presented. So if no matter how much I try to trick you, rational agent will never fall for it. But then the prospect theory predicts that depending on how you word the questions as either gain or loss, people's decision-making changes. So I wanna give a popular example by these same people who came up with the prospect theory, but it has some racial connotation that I want to be really careful about. So I'm just gonna read it off the script that I have.
Okay.
So imagine that the U.S. is preparing for the outbreak of an unusual Asian disease, which is expected to kill 600 people, right? So 2 alternative programs to combat the disease have been proposed. Assume the exact scientific estimate of the consequences of the programs are as follows. So we're going to ask one group of participants, or just anyone, given this scenario, I'm going to ask you this, which program would you choose? In a group of 600 people, so let's say program A, 200 people will be saved, okay? But if you choose program B, there's a 1/3 probability that 600 people will be saved, and a 2/3 probability that no people will be saved. So I'm talking about saved here. So 600 people is about to die, and if I choose, depending on how I choose, 200 people will be saved, which is, I'd say, gain, I guess. And in program B, there's a chance that everyone will die or everyone will be survived. So in that case, according to the description that I gave you about risk aversion and gains, people don't want to risk anything or risk losing anybody. So people tend to elect program A, which is 200 people will surely be saved. But let's ask the audience what would happen in the other case, like a lost case, right?
Yeah.
So same prompt. So 600 people have this Asian disease that's about to kill them. So their lives are at risk, right? So let's say program C, if you choose program C, 400 people will die for sure. If you choose program D, there's a 1/3 probability that nobody will die and 2/3 probability that 600 people will die. In that case, what would our audience do?
Let me just ask them this question. May I just... Okay. Because it's really interesting. I think we need some interaction for you. یه سوالی اینجا مطرحه، یک آزمایشی انجام دادن. خیلی جالبه که اگر که بتونین اینو مشارکت بکنین، سعی بکنین که جواب بدین توی کامنت ها. فرض بکنین که یه حالا همین کرونا یا یه ویروس دیگه اومده و آمریکا میخواد سرمایه گذاری بکنه روی یک چند تا پروگرام مختلف. توی سناریوی اول اینو داریم که پروگرام اول 600 نفر روی 600 نفر احتمالاً اینا 600 نفر این بیماری رو گرفتن و ممکنه که از بین برن و پروگرام اول اینه که 200 نفر رو نجات میده قطعا و پروگرام دوم یک احتمالی وجود داره که یعنی با احتمال 1/3 600 نفر ممکنه سالم بمونن و با احتمال 2/3 ممکنه که هیچ آدمی زنده نمونه. یعنی یه مثلا واکسنی تهیه کردن، تو واکسن اول قطعا 200 نفر رو نجات میده از 600 نفر، توی حالت دوم توی واکسن دوم با احتمال مثلا خلوش 30% 600 نفر سالم میمونن ولی با احتمال مثلا 66% اینا زنده نمیمونن، هیچ کدوم از اون 600 نفر زنده نمیمونه. کدوم پروگرام رو شما انتخاب میکنین؟ کدوم واکسن رو ترجیح میدین؟ برامون کامنت کنید. واکسن اول یا دوم؟ جواب چی بوده تا حالا؟ واکسن اول. خب کاملا درسته. پس ما میایم تو شرایط خوب اون چیزی که قطعیت داره رو ترجیح میدیم. حالا داستان اینه که همین سناریو رو فرض بکنیم که وردینگش عوض شده، کلماتش رو تغییر میدن. به چه صورت؟ میگن که با فرض همین که ما 600 نفر آدم بریم که این بیماری رو گرفتن و ممکنه از بین برن، حالا ما 2 مدل واکسن ارائه میکنیم که تو حالت اول 400 نفر قطعا میمیرن و تو حالت دوم 1/3 آدم ها ممکنه که ببخشید به احتمال 30% ممکنه هیچ کس نمیره و به احتمال همون 66% یا مثلا 70% ممکنه که همه بمیرن. خب تو این شرایط کدوم رو انتخاب میکنیم؟ توی واکسن اول ما 400 نفر قطعا میمیرن و توی واکسن دوم به احتمال 1/3 600 نفر کامل زنده میمونن. عدد رقم‌ها مثل همون سری اول است، فقط وردینگ تغییر کرده. توی حالت اول میگفتیم که ما 200 نفر رو نجات میدیم قطعا، توی حالت 200 نفر از 600 نفر. توی این حالت دوم، سناریوی دوم، ما میگیم 400 نفر قطعا میمیرن از 600 نفر. یعنی در واقع همون 200 نفر دوباره نجات پیدا میکنن. ولی نظرتون چیه؟ الان کدوم رو ترجیح میدین؟ اینکه 400 نفر قطعا بمیرن یا اینکه به احتمال مثلا 30% 600 نفر زنده بمونن؟ تا اینجا کدوم گزینه بوده؟ خب هر دو رو دارین میگین. خب بسیار عالی. تو اینجا معمولا ما سعی میکنیم شیفت میکنیم رو گزینه دوم دیگه، چون یه احتمالی وجود داره که آدم ها زنده بمونن، 600 نفر زنده بمونن. خب ولی تو حالت اولش مطمئنیم که 400 نفر قطعا میمیرن و این عدد بالایی، ولی با یه احتمال 30% وجود داره که بالاخره کل 600 نفر زنده بمونن. Okay, John, we have the same for the first question. For the second scenario, people are so.
So here's the thing. So the reason here is that the original experiment in which they tested the scenario, different people received different scenarios. So sorry, different framings. Okay. So a group of people who received the gain scenario was not equal to the second loss scenario. So they don't know what the other scenario entails. Yeah. But there's evidence that even if the same people looks at it, it feels intuitively different. And here's the thing. So if I don't know how many people are watching our live right now, but if we gather enough people, and statistically speaking, the choice for program A in the first framing, I guess, should be higher than the program B, whereas in the second one, the loss framing, the choice should be shifted or shifted to the other one for the more of a risk seeking. And the fact that we could just tell from however many audience that we have that people, the majority of people picked 200 people will be saved for sure, whereas in the second scenario, it was systematically different. That's good enough for making descriptive theories, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah. So just to give you another example about this framing, so that it is easier to understand, I guess, is the marketing in marketing context, right? So you can use this framing to, I guess, shift people's preference to option A or option B or one or the other. So for instance, so just ask yourself, it's not quite really asking question to you, it's more of a rhetorical question for everybody. So you want to buy some kind, do you guys eat yogurt?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a yogurt. Okay. You're trying to buy a yogurt.
A variety of yogurts.
Great. Okay. A good example, I guess. Yeah. So yogurt, and you see on the shelf, and if it is described as a 90% fat-free, let's say in different supermarkets, same yogurt, but it says 10% fat, plain fat. Yeah. Which one is more attractive to you? 90% fat-free. Yeah. So that's a very simple example of how the framing concept was used in marketing situation, right? And it is also, you asked me about why decision making is important, and the short answer was because it's consequential. It's real. The consequences are real depending on your decision. So this framing is also used in some medical context. So for instance, let's say you're sick and you need some kind of major procedure to get better, right? But for those kind of procedures, you need a consent. So doctors need to get your consent or your guardian's consent, right? So in one version of the form, it says the procedure that you're about to get has 90% survival rate.
Yeah.
Whereas in other more different hospitals, the same procedure has a 10% mortality rate. So which one sounds better to you?
90%.
Right. So although it's objectively, the point here is that the two framings is pointing at the objectively same information, but depending on how you frame it, people's decision changes from one to the other. And this is not predicted by neoclassical economist theory, where they always they assume that people are rational all the time.
Yeah, that was a great example, and you erased something in my mind. Do you think in at least hospitality or this stuff which relates to our health, is it ethical to frame people? Because if you ask, okay, 90% would be survival rate after this procedure, so people probably would be more likely to go to that option instead of the 10%. Your guy would be dead.
So it's a big question that's being debated all the time. So listen, so in Great Britain, I think U.S. has been implementing some kind of behavioral research unit in all of their policy making departments, right? And because the consequences of some of these decisions are so real, it could kill you, literally, right? So people who are designing these surveys or just wordings are very diligent about, very careful about how to word it, so that, but then in doing it, they want to push the society towards the better than worse, right? So that's what we want. We want to increase the social welfare. So let me give you a really a tangible example, another tangible example. So everybody knows about, not everybody, many people know about nudge, the term nudge. Nudge is literally meaning that I'm nudging you to pushing you a little bit so that you do something else. Right. Well, I think you spoke something. All right. So one of the popular nudge example is that, I don't know about the case in Iran, but when I was getting my driver license in the US, there's a question, very little, the one sentence question: would you like to be an organ donor? Organ donor. When you die, you want to donate your organ. So back then it was a yes or no question, so I could pick one. I picked yes, I'm an organ donor. But then there are some countries where they need a lot of organ donation, but then the organ donation rate is so low. So they wanna nudge this question a little bit so that the rate of organ donation goes up. So the one way to do about it is to manipulate the default. So meaning that the organization, whoever's designing the surveys, preset the course of action, so that you're still given the freedom to choose something, but then because of your psychology and behavioral tendencies, you tend to make decisions that you, without knowing that you're making that decision without any kind of default preset, I would say. So for instance, in the countries where the organ donation, let's say, is 20%, it's very low, okay? Well, not very low, 20% is, in fact, it's okay, but then they want to increase it somehow. The one way of doing about it is in that question: would you like to be an organ donor? You give only one checkbox, which is I would like to opt out, meaning that I don't want to be an organ donor. Just give that one box. And if you don't choose that, check off that one box, then you're by default, you're organ donor. So it's just by manipulating the survey like that, just wording the question just like that, it could increase the organ donation rate by a lot. And it's been found in the field experiment.
And it's really difficult to talk about the ethical aspects of these things, because in many cases, businesses like to manipulate the people, and the consumers.
Right. By default, if you're an organ donor, even if you didn't like it, because of default, some kind of bias that's happening in your head, you became an organ donor. And once you become an organ donor, all you do is just defend your decision when you're asked about it later. So no matter what your initial preferences were, once you become an organ donor, you're an organ donor. You stay as an organ donor, and that has a lot of ethical implications there. So should we, knowing that we can manipulate people's decision like that, should we really implement this strategy? I don't know. There's no clear answer to that. If you need organs, maybe, but I don't know.
But at least for us as consumers, we need to know that these are the things that can change our behavior, can change our decisions during the real life decisions when you want to go buy some yogurt or anything else, or you want to donate your organ. So there are different things, at least even at the wording of the sentences that you can see in ads or different things. So you should be aware of that. And for companies and businesses, you need to learn how you can somehow change the behavior, not manipulate people, change the behavior in what case that you really want. For example, you want to sell more your good product, so you can change some behavior with some wording, some in advertising. So that's a good idea, because at least in Iran we need a lot of such things, because we hold some pitch for advertisement companies, and we ask, okay, give us your ideas, and they just came up with some artistic ideas, and nothing in no one really think about the effects, think about the words, think about the whole image effect on people. So you need to work more on that, and neuromarketing definitely can help in this field. So you can do and run experiments, you can use different tools in neuromarketing and neuroscientific tools to get what people are acting and how they react to this stimuli. So neuromarketing definitely can help you on this, and these are the basics and these are the fundamentals of foundations of our learning, that how we can change the behavior.
Certainly. So one of the ways to become a better marketer or better business owner, I guess, is to know about these phenomena.
Yeah.
Just that doesn't mean that you have to implement it, but knowing it and acting based on not knowing it is totally different, drastically different thing. So speaking of marketing, let me tell you another nudge that doesn't play around the borderline of ethical practices. Is one good example was subscription services. So for instance, like let's say, I think it's a Time magazine maybe. They wanted to increase their subscription rate or subscribers, I would say. So initially they had two options. One is paper only option, paper delivery option. Let's say that goes for, let's say $25. Let's say for the ease of explanation, $20. And the other one is a digital subscription only, which is, let's say, $10 maybe.
Yeah.
Doing that, people go for the digital one. It's cheaper, convenient, but I'm pretty sure that barring all the environmental safety, like sustainability stuff, people love to prefer to read on the printed materials than read on the digital devices, because the words are better printed, doesn't hurt your eyes. For also
you can have more interaction.
Exactly, you feel the paper. I don't know. I value the feeling of the paper.
Yeah, definitely. We have something in neuromarketing relates to our touch. We need some touch and haptic.
So it is an added value. But it's more expensive. Therefore, people go for digital subscription. But one way to quote unquote nudge people is to include a third option where it's comparatively better to go opt for the $20 offline plus digital option. That is to include an even more expensive option that is objectively better than the $20 option, but it's more expensive. And then for the price increase, the benefit that you're getting is less substantial. In that case, the more expensive option, which was a $20, the paper version plus a digital version, expensive. Now it looks comparatively more attractive now. So people go from digital only now to the middle option, right? Because we included that higher option. which comparatively looks worse.
Yeah.
So that's the one way. The inclusion of an alternative in a subscription menu is also another way to, quote unquote, nudge people without really risking the ethical practice.
Yeah, sure. Great, thank you. Okay, let's go to the uncertainty factors, the two factors that can affect uncertainty or increase uncertainty. Do you think, what do you think about the factors? What factors can induce uncertainty? And what's the relationship between the uncertainty and stress? Because sometimes uncertainty induce and increase the stress level, and sometimes in such situations that have stress, and we think it can induce uncertainty. I don't know if let's say about psychological states, if we are stressed about something else, do we can decide in a good way, or it's the same as we are facing an uncertainty circumstances?
So here's the thing. So I don't believe the stress alone can induce some kind of feeling of uncertainty. I believe that uncertainty is mostly induced by external factors, but it is also true that some of the uncertainty have to do with people's risk perception. And I think I forgot to mention this one thing, that for me, uncertainty, although people use that term interchangeably with the risk, I believe uncertainty is it's not a better or worse thing, but it's a case in which you don't even know what kind of risk is out there. You know that there's a risk, but I don't know the percentage of succumbing to that risk. So in that case, I consider it as an uncertain situation or ambiguous situation. Yeah. And I think stress also have to do with uncertainty, the feelings of uncertainty, in a way that when you're tired, your decision making is impaired. That's a very simple way to think about it. Although we did not discuss here, as outside of the scope of this discussion, decision making is complex. Like I said, it has not only to do with risk, uncertainty, but it also has to do with emotions. And your brain functioning, I guess. And think about it, the cognition that the brain uses 70% of your nutrients that you intake in every day. It's an important machine in your body. Yeah. So eating well really helps your decision making. That's what I want to say. So when you read a lot of or hear a lot of this leadership talks where, hey, how do I make better decisions when I'm running a company? Or, hey, how do I make a better assessment of how the corporate is working, or any kind of daily decision making? How should I go about doing it better than what I do now? People usually say that, hey, list a pros and cons of making a decision and weigh the value of each pro and con. And if it has more pro, then go with that decision. If it has more con or negative things, then don't do that decision. Don't make that decision. So that's, anyone can say that. So it's a common knowledge. But what I want to say is, decision making uses a lot of your brain power. And one of the experience that I have is that people make bad decisions when they're under stress or under bad emotion, right? Or bad emotion, including fear, dread, you name it, right? Yeah. That doesn't mean that if you're in good emotion, if you're happy, you don't make necessarily better decision. Happiness can make you, make stupid decision as well. For instance, you get back together with your ex-girlfriend. That's a stupid decision. That's if you're happy, if you're thinking about getting back with your ex-girlfriend makes you happy, you tend to make that kind of decision, which usually don't end well, right? Yeah. So getting nutrition, appropriate right amount of nutrition is important in your daily life. So when I ask people who make dumb decisions, who are usually my friends, when I ask them about it, then they usually don't know why they made that decision that they would regret, right? And that happens almost 70% of the cases. And listen, if you're running a company, or if you're part of a corporate, if you are hired, and if you've been doing well and you made some, that tells you that you're a smart person and you're capable of making smart decisions. Just follow, take in all the information, recognize a problem, recognize your needs, then you have, and evaluate the alternatives in a good way, then you will make good decisions. But sometimes you make bad decisions because you can't think. You're not taking all the information in. You're ignoring some of the information. You're favoring some of the information that you want it to be. So that's a confirmation bias, by the way. But one of the panacea, I would say, the medicine for curing that thing is to have a breakfast. Just eat breakfast. Well-nutrition decision makers will be less likely to make stupid decisions.
Great. So you raised a lot of complexities, uncertainties. So uncertainty is not the only thing that you are affected in your decisions. So your emotional states, your feelings have some
has a lot to do with the decision making, and uncertainty can induce those feelings too.
Oh yeah, that's the most complicated thing. So I think you've already answered all of my questions. Just to wrap up something, and after that we can go to your questions. If you have any questions, you can just write it away on the comments. So after that, I can come to your comments, and we will ask John to answer them. But for wrap up, you mentioned that how our brain probably deceive our decisions in uncertainty, as we provided some examples in prospect theories. And for businesses, I want to make it more tangible for Iranian audience of our live. For businesses, from two sides, from businesses and consumers perspective, for businesses, inflation rates, economic growth, many, environmental factors, macro factors have some effects on their decisions and induce actually uncertainty in their business, in their day-to-day business. And they really want to know how they should decision on each part of the businesses. So do you have any suggestions for each extreme, if the results are good or the worst result come up, how they should decide? And at least I think as you mentioned, knowing these things can help them, because unconsciously they can be affected by these learnings, so they can change their decisions. And so anybody that is on the live, I promise that you will change after this live, and your decisions would be improved based on the learning that you got from this live. But do you think anything more you need to add?
So one of the things was eating. Like I said, you just believe in yourself that you're already a smart person, capable of making these decisions. Make a routine to make good decisions. Good decision leads to another good decision. It's a spiral way up.
I ask for Iranian audience because in Iran we have a lot of unforeseen situations. Right. Many things are always changed. So
that's a situation which the air of uncertainty is very thick. So it's really important in that case. If you don't know what to do, it is very important to focus on, rather than making a decision, before making a decision, it's really important to spend more due diligence in the first several steps of decision making. So first several steps meaning that you have to first recognize what the problem is going on.
Yeah.
So you also have to, at the same time, you also have to balance the need, what you want.
Yeah, sure.
After that, the information search, people tend to, so this is where a lot of error happens, the information search part. They only search for information that favors what they want, or they tend to ignore information that they don't want to see at all. So now that we have some idea from this talk that your information processing could be changed in many different ways, like either nudge, framing, your tendency to favor risk, avoid risk, stuff like that. You know better than you did yesterday.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just a one little step towards making better decision. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're not the only guy that need to make decisions. So you can ask for consultancy or something like this. So you can ask advice from different business persons or different consultants. So I think at least two things are important in their businesses. First, learning. You need to be up to date. So each day you allocate some time to learn new things about your business, about the people, about the consumers. Consumer behavior is really important. And the other thing is, when you don't have enough time to put on your on this stuff and learnings, you can hire consultants to help you, because consultants are definitely the people that can help you in these uncertainty situations. So from the consumer's perspective, what do you think about what should we learn from for our lives when we want to buy something, or when we face different advertisements, different promotions?
So one of the things when I teach, or when everybody or the professors that I had taught in principles of marketing course, is to focus on what consumers want. So that means that's very vague term, very uncertain term, ambiguous term, but it is the core. It is at the core of making a good decision as a consumer, and also as a marketer or slash sellers. So consumers should so writing about it really helps, actually. Like most situations, people don't know what they want, even if they go to shopping mall for no reason. Even if they have some vague idea about what they want. Let's say I want a jacket. You go to shopping mall. Which jacket? Oh, I haven't thought about it. I'll just test the waters, and then just try on everything out there. That's a part of the information search. But then more often than not, you should have as concrete of a thing, the jacket, let's say, you want in your mind prior to going to the shopping mall. If you find a better one than you thought, then so be it. Go get that one. But it is almost always good to know assign some kind of value to what you want. So you have to really ask yourself as a consumer that whether it is what I want or not, and that really helps you overcome this framing effect as well. All this advertisement telling you how great their product is. You don't get hooked by it. So if you know your value, although it's hard, and that has a whole bunch of research on how people don't know their own value. Their value assessment changes depending on the alternatives out there. Their whole thing different, but that's knowing value somehow is better than not knowing anything.
Yeah, sure. And I think that's the thing for commodity products. And people usually don't think about the commodity products because it's cheaper. They don't need, so they don't make a concrete decision, determine what they want. So they would really be fooled in that way. On the other hand, for more difficult decisions, it's more difficult for them to make a concrete decision, to determine all the borders, all the things that they really want to,
Right.
to shape the value.
Look, you have to assess the cost of thinking about every value that you're trying to assign. So, like you said, for commodity one, it really doesn't I guess it doesn't make economic sense to think everything. So you want to buy
yogurt or that
this yogurt,
yeah.
that yogurt. Doesn't make sense. I was just using yogurt as an example of framing. Just be aware of about that. But it really doesn't make sense. You have to think about your effort, time spent on thinking. All that goes in.
Yeah, but that's the opportunity for businesses in yogurt things and FMCG.
Exactly. Yeah. But here's the thing. So if you don't start somewhere, let's say, practice thinking about your decision making from a very small thing like commodity, where there's a very low risk. If you don't have enough practice in that, when it becomes a time to make a big decision, you will not be good at it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
It was a great live. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you all enjoy this live. Thank you, John, again. Have a good time. Thank you, you all. Have a good night. See you later. Bye.